Welcome back, everyone, to The Unseen Wisdom. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to keep those deep dives coming. Today, we're diving into some choppy water.
Oh,
In South African politics, we're talking about that recent controversy
okay.
surrounding an ANC leader's rather lavish trip to Robben Island. You know, the one with the yacht?
Right.
This incident has sparked a lot of debate, and we're going beyond the headlines to see what it might reveal about the state of things in South Africa today.
It's remarkable how a seemingly simple choice of transportation can become such a lightning rod, isn't it?
Yeah.
This incident has become a symbol, a lens, through which we can examine issues like inequality, public perception, and the widening gap between political leaders and the people they represent.
Absolutely. It's not just about the boat. It's about what that boat represents. So let's unpack this, shall we? Our source details how ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula chose to travel to Robben Island on a luxury yacht
Okay.
owned by a businessman, while other ANC leaders and the media took the regular ferry.
And it's precisely that contrast, that visual disparity that has fueled the outrage that political analyst San Luana didn't mince words, calling it a spit in the face of the people,
Wow.
particularly the struggling majority in the Western Cape. He sees it as a blatant display of crust materialism, a disconnect between the lived realities of ordinary citizens and the indulgences of those in power.
It definitely raises some eyebrows, especially when you consider the backdrop of South Africa's current challenges.
Okay.
Unemployment is high, crime is rampant,
Yeah.
and many people are struggling to make ends meet. In that context, a luxury yacht trip might seem
Yeah.
a bit tone-deaf, would you say?
Indeed, and this incident feeds into a larger narrative about the ANC's credibility crisis. They've made promises to address these pressing issues, but incidents like this cast a shadow over their commitment, raising questions about whether their actions align with their words.
Right. It's like saying one thing and doing another, and that disconnect can be incredibly damaging to public trust.
Yes.
So how did the ANC respond to this wave of criticism?
Well, ANC National Chairperson Gwede Mantashe stepped in to defend the decision. He attempted to downplay the yacht incident, calling it a peripheral issue and emphasizing the importance of the ANC delegation's visit to Robben Island itself.
So essentially shifting the focus away from the controversy
Yeah.
and onto the symbolic importance of the visit.
Exactly. But in doing so, he also raised questions about accountability within the ANC. He insisted that the yacht trip wasn't a formal ANC decision, potentially shifting the blame onto lower-level officials or logistical choices.
But our source also mentions conflicting information about who actually arranged the transportation right. An unnamed ANC member claimed that it was indeed organized by the party itself.
That ambiguity adds another layer to this whole situation, doesn't it? It makes you wonder about transparency and decision-making processes within the ANC. If it wasn't a formal decision, who made the call and why?
This lack of clarity can further fuel public distrust. It's like, who's really in charge here? And if they aren't transparent about something like this, what else might they be less than forthcoming about?
It raises the question of whether this incident is indicative of a larger pattern of behavior within the ANC. Are they truly focused on serving the people and addressing the nation's pressing issues? Or are they becoming increasingly detached from the realities faced by ordinary South Africans?
It feels like a crucial moment for the ANC. They're facing growing criticism about their handling of the economy, crime, and unemployment. And then this yacht incident happens, further feeding into the narrative that they're out of touch and prioritizing personal luxury over the needs of the people.
Precisely. It's a perfect storm of sorts. The optics of this incident couldn't be worse. Considering the context, it plays right into the hands of their critics and undermines their efforts to project an image of a party dedicated to serving the nation. And this leads us to Mantashe's insistence that renewal within the ANC is an ongoing process, not a single event.
Right.
It's a line we've heard before, but it raises an interesting question, especially in light of recent setbacks like their loss of majority in the 2024 elections.
It's that age-old saying, right, Rome wasn't built in a day. But at what point does that argument start to wear thin? If the ANC is genuinely committed to renewal, shouldn't we start to see tangible evidence of that change?
That's the crux of the matter, isn't it? Mantashe speaks of a time lag, the delay between implementing policies and seeing their effects. It's a valid point to a certain extent. Meaningful change does take time. But how much time is reasonable when people are facing real immediate hardships?
Exactly. When people are struggling with unemployment, crime, and poverty, the promise of eventual change might not be enough. They need to see action progress, something that gives them hope that things are moving in the right direction.
This is where the symbolism of the yacht trip becomes even more potent. It undermines the ANC's message of renewal and their commitment to serving the people when those in power appear to be enjoying lavish perks while the masses struggle. It creates a stark disconnect.
It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words. And in this case, the actions seem to contradict the message the ANC is trying to convey.
Precisely, it feeds into the perception that they're more concerned with self-preservation and maintaining the status quo than with truly addressing the needs of the people. It's a dangerous path to tread, especially when public trust is already fragile.
This whole situation really highlights the importance of optics in politics, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about what you do, but how those actions are perceived by the public.
Absolutely. In the age of social media and instant communication, every decision, every action becomes amplified and scrutinized. Leaders need to be incredibly mindful of the message they're sending,
Right.
even through seemingly mundane choices like transportation.
So if Mantasha is saying renewal is a process, shouldn't that process be reflected in their actions, in the way they conduct themselves, in the choices they make?
You're absolutely right. True renewal needs to be more than just rhetoric. It needs to be embedded in their behavior, in their policies, and in their interactions with the people.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another interesting aspect of Mantasha's defense. His unwavering support for the ANC's Black Economic Empowerment, or BEE, policies.
This is where the conversation becomes particularly nuanced. BEE is a complex issue with passionate arguments on all sides. Mantashe argues that BE is crucial to address historical inequalities and empower Black South Africans to fully participate in the economy. And on the surface, that goal is commendable.
I think most people would agree that addressing historical injustices is important, but it's the implementation and the effectiveness of BEE that have sparked so much debate, right?
Exactly. Critics argue that while the intentions behind BEE are noble, the reality on the ground has been much more complicated. Some say it's created a new elite, enriching a select few who are politically connected. Rather than uplifting the masses, it was intended to help.
So it's become another potential example of that disconnect we were discussing earlier. A policy designed to uplift the disadvantaged ends up benefiting those who are already well-positioned.
It's a valid concern, and it underscores the need for a critical assessment of BE's impact. Has it truly achieved its goals of economic transformation for the majority of Black South Africans? Or has it primarily benefited a privileged few?
It's a question worth pondering, especially in light of the current economic climate and the challenges facing so many South Africans.
And this brings us to a pivotal point for our listeners to consider. How do we reconcile the lofty goals of policies like BEE with the realities on the ground? How do we ensure that these policies truly serve their intended purpose and contribute to a more just and equitable society?
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to have, especially if we want to see real progress and meaningful change in South Africa.
Indeed. And I think this entire discussion, from the yacht trip controversy to the complexities of BEE, highlights the crucial role of critical thinking and informed engagement in shaping a better future for South Africa.
You've said it perfectly. We need to move beyond simplistic narratives and engage with the nuances of these issues, ask tough questions, and hold our leaders accountable for their decisions and their actions.
It's about recognizing that real change requires more than just good intentions. It demands a commitment to transparency, accountability, and a genuine connection with the people you serve.
So as we delve deeper into the intricacies of BEE and its implications for South Africa's future, I want to pose a question to our listeners. What are your thoughts on the effectiveness of BE? Has it lived up to its promise? And what role do you think citizens should play in ensuring that policies like this truly benefit those they are intended to help?
These are crucial questions for every South African to consider, because ultimately the future of this nation depends on an informed and engaged citizenry who hold their leaders accountable and demand real progress toward a more just and equitable society.
We've been unpacking this complex situation in South African politics, from a seemingly minor yacht trip to the intricacies of BEE. And, it strikes me that BEE is often presented as this monolithic thing.
Right.
But it's actually quite multifaceted, isn't it?
It absolutely is. BEE isn't just one policy, it's a whole framework with different components, designed to address those historical economic imbalances we talked about. We're talking about things like ownership, management control skills, development procurement, and socioeconomic development. It's about participation at various levels of the economy, not just who happens to hold the most shares in a company.
So it's not just about creating a few Black billionaires. It's about broader economic empowerment across society.
Mm-hmm.
That's where things get tricky, though, right? Because the criticism isn't necessarily about the goals of BEE, but how effectively it's been implemented.
You've hit the nail on the head. The intentions on paper are often laudable. But critics argue that in practice, BEE has sometimes fallen short of its promise. We hear concerns about cronyism, about a system that benefits a select, well-connected few, rather than leading to widespread upliftment.
It's almost like creating a new elite, rather than genuinely leveling the playing field. And that ties back to the whole theme of disconnect we've been discussing. The ANC talks about serving the people, yet some of their actions, and even the perceived outcomes of policies like BEE seem to contradict that message.
It's a valid point, and one that fuels skepticism. If BEE is supposed to be about empowering the disadvantaged, but the perception is that it primarily benefits those already close to power,
Right.
then it risks becoming a source of resentment rather than a solution.
And that brings us back to this yacht trip, which on its own might seem like a minor issue. But in the context of these broader discussions about inequality, economic empowerment, and the ANC's commitment to the people, it becomes a powerful symbol.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? Because even if the intention wasn't malicious, the optics are terrible when people are struggling to put food on the table.
Yeah.
Seeing leaders indulging in luxury reinforces that feeling of being left behind, of a system that works for some but not for all.
It erodes trust and makes those promises of renewal and a better future ring hollow. So for you listening, here's something to ponder. If symbolic actions like this yacht trip can have such a significant impact on the credibility of a political party, what does that say about the responsibility leaders have to be mindful of the optics of their choices?
It's a crucial question to consider, because leadership isn't just about policy pronouncements. It's about actions, perceptions, and that constant need to connect with the people you represent. It's about understanding that every choice, even seemingly small ones, sends a message.
And those messages accumulate over time, shaping public perception and influencing whether people believe in your leadership and your commitment to serving them.
We've explored a lot today. A yacht trip that sparked a firestorm, the complexities of BE and the challenges facing the ANC. But I think the unseen wisdom we've uncovered is this: leadership is about more than just words. It's about deeds. It's about optics. And it's about that constant striving to bridge the gap between aspirations and the lived experiences of those you represent.
Beautifully put. And for you listening as you go about your day, consider this. How do the choices of those in power, big and small, shape your perception of their leadership? And what expectations do you hold for those who represent you? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those unseen connections that help us understand our complex world.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
And remember to like, comment, and subscribe to The Unseen Wisdom for more insightful explorations. Until next time, stay curious.